Have you ever wondered why alcohol is called a spirit? Is it just a name, or is there something much deeper behind it? What I'm about to reveal today might completely change the way you see this substance. Since ancient times, alcohol has been used both as a gateway to the divine and as a poison to consciousness. But what most people don't realize is that it might be draining your energy, severing your connection with your essence, and making you vulnerable to influences you can't even imagine. Does alcohol truly set you free, or is it an illusion designed to keep you trapped? After this video, you'll never look at a drink the same way again. Watch until the end and tell me in the comments. Do you think alcohol interferes with spirituality, or is there no connection at all? Let's discuss. Since the dawn of humanity, alcohol has been a spiritual enigma. In sacred rituals, it was seen as a divine elixir, a portal to hidden dimensions of consciousness. However, this same liquid, when consumed in excess, revealed its illusory nature, trapping minds in states of stupor and disorientation. Ancient civilizations already recognized this paradox. While in small doses it seemed to expand perception, in excess, it destabilized the connection with higher essence. Alcohol thus became a mirror of the soul, reflecting both the quest for transcendence and the trap of escapism. But why does this substance hold such fascination? The secret lies in its ability to alter brain chemistry and consequently how consciousness interacts with reality. Some use it as a social facilitator, an outlet for inhibitions and everyday anxieties. However, many ignore the subtle effects it has on the energetic field. In many esoteric traditions, alcohol is believed to create gaps in the aura, making individuals more vulnerable to external influences. This energetic fragility can be observed in states of drunkenness when mental clarity dissipates and unconscious impulses take over. Interestingly, the relationship between alcohol and spirituality is not a modern concept. Shamans of ancient tribes used fermented substances in healing rituals and connections with higher entities, but always under strict guidance. The purpose was not hedonistic pleasure, but rather a controlled dive into the unknown. In contemporary societies, however, consumption has lost this intentionality and has become an unconscious, often destructive habit. What was once seen as a means of spiritual elevation has turned into nothing more than a shortcut to forgetfulness. Ultimately, alcohol can be both a gateway and a prison, depending on the level of awareness with which it is used. On the one hand, it provides a momentary experience of expansion. On the other, it can divert individuals from their true inner journey. What defines the fine line between elevation and illusion? The answer lies in the intention and perception of the one consuming it. After all, are we truly seeking a higher state, or are we just trying to escape the reality that haunts us? Few people know that the very word alcohol carries a deep and unsettling symbolism. Its origin traces back to the Arabic term al-kul, which initially referred to a fine powder used as eye makeup. However, over time, alchemists began to use the word to designate distilled substances associated with volatile spiritual essences. In the esoteric view, this spirit does not just evaporate into the air, but also consumes whatever it touches, reflecting how alcohol affects both body and mind. It is no coincidence that some cultures refer to alcoholic beverages as spirits, suggesting that their influence extends beyond the physical plane. This etymology leads us to an intriguing concept: alcohol as an agent that separates the soul from the body. Some occult scholars argue that this substance acts as an energetic solvent, weakening the connection between consciousness and the higher self. The renowned mystic Rudolf Steiner warned that alcohol diminishes an individual's ability to access their own intuition and discernment, making them more susceptible to lower impulses. This idea resonates with many spiritual traditions, which see drunkenness as a state of spiritual vulnerability, where external forces can more easily influence the human psyche. From a scientific perspective, this separation between mind and body can be explained by alcohol's effect on the nervous system. It suppresses the activity of the frontal lobes, responsible for judgment and self-awareness, while simultaneously stimulating pleasure centers. This creates the illusion of freedom, disinhibition, and power, while in reality, it reduces control and perception. This mechanism mirrors the very symbolism of the word alcohol, something that dissolves, that obscures, that seduces with a false glow before silently corroding what it touches. Thus, when we analyze the true meaning of alcohol, we realize that it carries a deep paradox. It promises expansion, but can bring imprisonment. It invites euphoria, but often leads to forgetfulness. If even its linguistic origin refers to a spirit that consumes, perhaps it's time to question whether this substance serves us or enslaves us. What happens when such a common habit hides, in reality, a meaning far older and more enigmatic than we ever imagined? The relationship between alcohol and spirituality dates back to immemorial times. Ancient civilizations, such as the Sumerians, Egyptians and Greeks, saw fermented beverages as a gift from the gods, a means of communion with the divine. Among the Egyptians, beer was considered sacred, a gift from the goddess Hathor, used both in rituals and in daily life. The Greeks, in turn, worshipped Dionysus, the god of wine, ecstasy, and madness, recognizing the dual power of this substance. It could both illuminate the mind and plunge it into chaos. This duality shows that since ancient times, alcohol was seen not merely as a worldly pleasure, but as a key capable of unlocking altered states of consciousness, for better or worse. However, the sages of these civilizations knew that alcohol was not something to be used without discernment. The Dionysian mysteries, for example, required rigorous initiations, where the drink was consumed in specific ceremonial contexts, always accompanied by rituals and spiritual guidance. The purpose was not uncontrolled drunkenness, but transcendence, i.e., mystical experience that allowed the initiate to glimpse realities beyond material existence. Meanwhile, Egyptian priests avoided excessive consumption, as they believed it weakened the energetic body and hindered their connection with the gods. This demonstrates that even in antiquity, there was a deep understanding that alcohol could be both a bridge to the divine and a path to downfall. Curiously, this understanding has been lost over time. What was once a tool for spiritual transformation has become a trivialized habit, devoid of meaning. Today, people consume alcohol without any conscious intention, often just to escape routine or numb the mind. The issue does not lie in the substance itself, but in the way it is used. When ingested without purpose, it becomes merely a vehicle for dispersion, disconnecting the individual from their own essence. This distancing from alcohol's true spiritual purpose may explain why so many cultures have come to see it as a poison for the soul. The spiritual history of alcohol teaches us that every substance has its purpose and its price. The ancients understood that anything capable of altering perception must be used with extreme responsibility. Do we still have this awareness today, or are we merely repeating patterns without reflecting on their consequences? If alcohol was once a means of connection with the divine, what does it represent in modern society? The impact of alcohol on the energetic body goes far beyond the physical effects described by conventional science. In various spiritual traditions, it is believed that the human body is not just flesh and bone, but also a vibrational field composed of subtle energy. When we ingest alcohol, this field weakens, creating fissures in the aura. the energetic layer that protects individuals from external influences. These fissures can allow the entry of negative energies, opportunistic spiritual entities, or even destructive thoughts that would normally be repelled by a strengthened aura. This is one of the reasons why, after a night of heavy drinking, many people feel an inexplicable emotional weight, as if something beyond the physical hangover were draining their strength. The mystic Rudolf Steiner warned of an even deeper effect. Alcohol disconnects the soul from its higher guidance. This means that, under its influence, an individual may lose alignment with their intuition and spiritual purpose, becoming more susceptible to primitive impulses and fleeting desires. This disconnection does not occur only in moments of intoxication, but can persist depending on the frequency and intensity of consumption. Over time, this energetic rupture can lead to a state of spiritual apathy, where a person loses interest in practices that nourish the soul, such as meditation, introspection, and self-knowledge. It is interesting to note that many religious traditions prohibit or discourage alcohol consumption precisely because they recognize this subtle effect. In Islam, it is considered haram, forbidden, because it numbs the mind and distances the faithful from their connection with the divine. In Buddhism, the fifth moral precept teaches to avoid intoxicants that cloud consciousness. In Christianity, there are passages warning of the dangers of wine when consumed without moderation. All these perspectives converge on a common point. Alcohol can disrupt spiritual balance, making individuals vulnerable to forces that hinder their evolution. If spirituality is a path of elevation and awareness, it makes sense to question the effects of alcohol on this process. Does it bring us closer to or further from our essence? If it weakens our energetic field and mental clarity, what are the long-term consequences for those who consume it regularly? And, above all, are we making a conscious choice, or are we merely repeating habits imposed by culture and society? Alcohol consumption directly affects the balance of the chakras, the energy centers that regulate our physical, emotional, and spiritual state. Two chakras, in particular, experience significant impact: the root chakra and the crown chakra. The root chakra, located at the base of the spine, is associated with survival, instincts, and earthly pleasures. Alcohol tends to overstimulate it, leading to an exaggerated craving for physical and immediate sensations, such as euphoria, disinhibition, and momentary pleasure. On the other hand, the crown chakra, positioned at the top of the head and responsible for our connection to higher planes of consciousness, is drastically suppressed by alcohol's effects, making deeper spiritual experiences much more difficult. This imbalance creates a trap. A person may feel looser and more confident while under the influence of alcohol, but at the same time, they lose connection with their intuition and discernment. This explains why so many individuals make impulsive decisions or regret their actions after drinking. It's as if alcohol diverts energy from the spiritual to the material, trapping a person in an illusion where everything seems lighter and easier, but without a solid foundation of clarity and purpose. This phenomenon is evident in contemporary culture, where alcohol is promoted as a path to fun but is rarely associated with true happiness or inner fulfillment. Esoteric traditions have long warned of the dangers of blocking the energy flow of the upper chakras. When the crown chakra is closed, a person becomes more prone to excessive materialism, superficiality, and an endless search for external stimuli. This can create a vicious cycle. The more someone consumes alcohol to relieve tension, the more disconnected they become from their spirituality. And this disconnection can generate a void that, ironically, leads them to seek the substance even more. This is why so many spiritual practices, such as yoga and meditation, emphasize the importance of full awareness and the purification of the energetic body. If true freedom comes from self-knowledge and alignment with our essence, Does it make sense to numb our perception with substances that take us further away from that? Alcohol may give the temporary sensation of expansion, but by compromising energetic balance, it distances us from our true inner light. What if, instead of seeking temporary escapes, we started exploring ways of elevation that truly nourish our souls? Modern science has much to say about alcohol's effects on the human mind, and its findings confirm what many spiritual traditions intuited centuries ago. Neuroscience studies show that alcohol significantly reduces activity in the frontal lobes, the region of the brain responsible for logical reasoning, decision-making, and self-control. This effect explains why, under the influence of alcohol, people tend to act impulsively, speak without filters, and even take actions they later regret. On a deeper level, this suppression of critical thinking can create a kind of mental fog, making introspection and self-awareness, fundamental elements for any path of spiritual evolution, more difficult. Furthermore, from a psychological perspective, alcohol often functions as an emotional anesthetic. It does not resolve internal problems, it simply pushes them under the rug for a few hours. For many people, frequent consumption is not just about leisure, but an escape from existential suffering. Studies indicate that individuals dealing with anxiety, depression, or trauma are more likely to develop a problematic relationship with alcohol. This creates a dangerous cycle. A person drinks to escape suffering, but in the long run, the substance intensifies the inner void, making them even more dependent on this temporary relief. Interestingly, neuroscience also reveals that alcohol alters the way we relate to others. It reduces risk perception and increases the feeling of social connection, which may explain why so many people rely on it in social interactions. However, this connection is illusory, as it is not based on authenticity, but on an altered chemical state. Over time, this can lead to difficulties in relationships, as a person may struggle to express themselves or feel comfortable without the aid of the substance. In other words, alcohol can undermine our ability to connect genuinely with both ourselves and others. Given this evidence, it is clear that alcohol does not impact only the body, but also the mind and soul. If we seek spiritual and emotional growth, we need to question our habits and identify which ones help us evolve and which ones merely mask a deeper discomfort. After all, are we truly in control of our choices, or are we just yielding to social conditioning and the empty promises of fleeting euphoria? One of the greatest illusions associated with alcohol is the idea of freedom. Under its influence, inhibitions dissolve, shyness disappears, and euphoria takes over. The feeling of power and carefree abandon seems liberating, but in reality, it is merely a temporary chemical trick. What alcohol does is not grant freedom, but disable the brakes of judgment and introspection. True freedom comes from awareness and self-mastery, not from loss of control. When someone needs a substance to feel uninhibited, who is really in charge? Themselves or the chemicals altering their brain? This false sense of liberation is one of the main reasons so many people turn to alcohol repeatedly. In a world where we are constantly pressured by responsibilities, expectations, and fears, the promise of immediate relief is seductive. But this freedom is short-lived. The next day, physical and emotional hangovers arrive, bringing not just discomfort but often feelings of regret and emptiness. What seemed like an escape turns into an even more painful return to reality, and for many, the solution ends up being to continue the cycle, seeking yet another dose of this illusory freedom. Modern culture reinforces this illusion by romanticizing alcohol as synonymous with fun and authenticity. Commercials, movies, and social media portray people as happy, uninhibited, and full of life while drinking. But rarely is there any mention of the lonely moments after the party, the impact on mental clarity, or the toll on spiritual well-being. This idealization leads many to believe that they cannot have fun without alcohol, as if it were a mandatory passport to joy. However, just by observing those who have truly developed a high level of self-awareness, we can see that true happiness does not come from external substances, but from a balanced mind free from dependencies. If alcohol truly brought freedom, it would not create dependency. The fact that so many people feel the need for it to feel at ease says a lot about how trapped they are in this illusion. The real question is, what is being avoided? What inside of us makes us feel the need to escape? When we start searching for answers to these questions, we realize that true liberation does not come from numbing the mind, but from facing it, understanding it, and transcending it. So are we ready to trade the illusion of freedom for the real experience of being fully awake? Restoring balance after years of alcohol consumption is not just a physical process, but also an energetic and spiritual one. The body needs detoxification, but the mind and soul also require healing to reconnect with their true essence. Practices such as meditation and yoga help restore mental clarity and strengthen the energetic field, protecting individuals from negative influences that may have settled over the years. Additionally, deep breathing techniques, pranayama, assist in releasing toxins and harmonizing the chakras, allowing vital energy to flow freely through the body again. Another great ally in recovery is contact with nature. Spending time outdoors, walking barefoot on the earth, absorbing the energy of the sun, and breathing fresh air are effective ways to restore vitality and rebalance the aura. Many spiritual masters teach that nature has the power to remind us of who we truly are, clearing away the artificial stimuli that keep us trapped in destructive patterns. Additionally, practices like bathing in rivers or the ocean help cleanse negative energetic charges accumulated through prolonged alcohol use. Cultivating gratitude is also an essential step in rebuilding inner balance. Alcohol is often used to numb difficult emotions, but true healing happens when we learn to face our feelings with acceptance and understanding. Keeping a gratitude journal, practicing positive affirmations, and developing present moment awareness are effective ways to replace old habits with new perspectives. Instead of seeking escape, a person begins to find meaning in the little things, discovering joy in their own clarity. Overcoming alcohol dependence is not just about quitting a habit, it is about reclaiming one's spiritual sovereignty. Each step on this path leads to a new perception of reality and strengthens the connection with one's essence. And the stronger this connection becomes, the less need there is to rely on external substances to fill an internal void. Ultimately, true balance is not about prohibitions or rigid rules, but about the awareness that everything we consume directly affects our energy, our mind, and our ability to live fully awake. Great spiritual traditions have always warned about the dangers of intoxicating substances, with alcohol at the center of these warnings. In Buddhism, for example, one of the 5 basic moral precepts teaches to avoid substances that cloud the mind as they prevent clarity and hinder the path to enlightenment. The Buddha understood that an intoxicated mind becomes vulnerable to uncontrolled impulses and loses the ability to discern between truth and illusion. Similarly, in Hinduism, the Bhagavad Gita teaches that discipline and mental balance are fundamental to spiritual growth and that any substance that disrupts this stability should be avoided. In Christianity, although wine is mentioned in symbolic and ceremonial contexts, there are numerous passages warning against drunkenness. Ephesians 5:18, for example, states, "Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit." Indeed, this phrase suggests that rather than seeking temporary pleasure in alcohol, true fulfillment comes from a connection with the divine. The same applies to Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam, which uses the metaphor of the wine of divine love to contrast worldly intoxication with the true spiritual ecstasy that can only be achieved through complete surrender to God. Beyond direct warnings, there is a common pattern in these teachings. All spiritual traditions emphasize self-mastery and clarity of consciousness as keys to evolution. Alcohol, by clouding perception and weakening the will, contradicts this principle. This explains why so many spiritual masters advise their disciples to avoid intoxicating substances. They understand that the human mind is already naturally challenged by distractions and illusions, and anything that further reduces lucidity only makes the inner journey more difficult. These teachings are not merely moral rules, but practical guides for those who seek to attain higher states of consciousness. If the great masters warned against the use of alcohol, perhaps it is worth reflecting on why. Are we willing to let go of something that limits our perception in order to experience a deeper connection with our true essence? Or do we prefer to remain in the comfortable haze of intoxication, unable to see what we truly are? True freedom is not in escapism, but in self-mastery. Many seek alcohol for temporary relief, a break from life's worries and pressures, but the greatest irony is that in trying to escape, they become prisoners of a cycle of dependence, emptiness, and disconnection. Real liberation comes from awakening consciousness, from the ability to face life with clarity and courage, without needing chemical crutches to cope with emotions. When we understand that happiness and peace are internal states, there is no longer a need to numb the senses to achieve them. Reaching this level of awareness requires effort, but it brings immeasurable rewards. By breaking free from the illusion of alcohol, the mind becomes clearer, emotions become more authentic, and the connection with spirituality deepens. The clarity that was once obscured by the substance's effects now reveals itself as a powerful force, allowing a person to understand themselves in a more truthful way. This journey of self-mastery is what the great spiritual teachers have always taught. Happiness does not come from the outside, but from within, and it can only be accessed by those who have the courage to face reality as it is. Letting go of a habit that limits growth is not a loss, but a gain. Instead of depending on something external for pleasure or relaxation, a person discovers other, more genuine ways to feel good. Meditation, connection with nature, art, physical exercise, music, and even silence become sources of joy and well-being. What once seemed impossible, living without the need for an intoxicant, transforms into a new way of life, one that is richer, more intense, and above all, more conscious. The path to liberation is always available to those who choose to walk it. The question is, are we truly willing to abandon old patterns and take a step toward a higher state of awareness? Or will we continue repeating the same behaviors, expecting different results? The choice is always in our hands, and true freedom only begins when we decide to claim it. Now that you know all this, the question is, what will you do with this information? Will you continue seeing alcohol as something harmless, or will you start observing its effects with greater awareness? The decision is yours, but one thing is certain. True freedom is not in escapism, but in self-knowledge. If alcohol truly brought you happiness, why would you need to drink again to feel the same effect? If it really relaxed you, why does anxiety return even stronger the next day? Think about it and more. Have you ever noticed the spiritual effects we discussed here? Your energy, your intuition, your thoughts. Do you feel that they change when you drink? I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think alcohol interferes with our spiritual connection? Or do you believe this is just another mystical exaggeration? Leave a comment below. Let's exchange ideas. I want to know what you think about this, and if this video opened your mind, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and continue this journey of knowledge with me. Here, we talk about truths that no one else tells you. See you in the next video.